Y is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
I just got this news alert.
Oh God, what?
No, it's ridiculous.
Oh, good.
Prince Philip's cause of death finally revealed.
Racism?
Old age.
Oh, that's my second guess.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
I want to record a little nonsense I want to do this quickly, though, because it is one of my favorite things today. Day baseball during the week.
What?
I think there's nothing better than a baseball game during the daytime in the week that you can have that going in the background while you're working. There's nothing better.
Okay, no, that's fair.
Like a good sandwich, maybe, but that's right up there.
I hate sandwiches.
Really? Why?
We've had this conversation.
Did we?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I remember this?
Because it was early on.
I've blocked all of that out.
Yeah, I don't like sandwiches.
Okay.
I find them quite gross. And day baseball, I do not like the sound of a game in the background, but there is nothing I love more than going to a day baseball game.
I see. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about Patriots Day being my favorite holiday in the world, and that's day baseball at 11 a.m. It's perfect.
Yeah.
So, but to that end, the Tigers are winning over the Red Sox. Yeah, which is
I'm it's Tigers versus Red Sox. We should be all over this game.
Yeah, they it's tied 1-1 in the series. The Red Sox won the first one. The Tigers won last night in extra innings, and right now it's 1-0 Tigers.
Why don't we have our swag on?
I don't know. I was tempted to text you some sort of very dismissive "thanks for playing" message the other night, but I thought I should take the high road.
Should have.
And not do that. But apparently, I should have maybe done that.
You should have done that.
You said you're kind of new to the podcast game. What was the reason you were sort of like, I need to do this show?
Well, I'm an ex-nightclub promoter. I used to be a nightclub promoter in Los Angeles. I was the #1 nightclub promoter when I did it, but that was back in the late 80s. And I missed that kind of connection. So I always wanted to do a podcast. So I was thinking, what kind of podcast would I do? And I was also a stand-up comedian even before I was a nightclub promoter. So, when you're a stand-up comedian, you ask yourself, well, what's my story? Because you want to be able to, it's the kind of comedians I like, are honest and they tell, something that's from within, so I had to find something that was about me. And I wasn't going to kind of teach people anything, although I'm, a personal growth expert, so to speak, because that's not truly me. I've had a lot of successes and a lot of failures in the second half of my life. Knock on wood, I've had more successes. So I said, I should really do a podcast about, underdogs, because that's always been kind of like the theme, So my story, my background is I come from a long line of long shots. My grandmother survived the Russian concentration camps. My dad was a homeless New York street kid that was home and, made millions of dollars and then lost all his money. My mom was the one thing she kept after, my dad. He had to leave her because he was had a crazy lifestyle. She kept this home in Encino. So we were a poor family that lived in a rich neighborhood. We were like the Beverly Hills Hillbillies, but we're in Encino. We're like the Encino Jubilees. And I wasn't even supposed to be born. I was premature. I was an oops baby, fourth in a large family. And I, survived. But I had learning disabilities. I was put in a special school at UCLA, because they're like, what's wrong with this kid? And then I was able to get out of that. And then eventually I saw, when I was 9 years old, I saw the movie Rocky. I was unhealthy. And I said, here's a guy like me. He's unhealthy. And he is not, nobody thinks he's smart, but he always tries hard. So from every day, I said, the only difference is that he's healthy. So I started working out every day, exercising every day. 9 years old, I'm running around, I'm doing push-ups instead of whatever I could do, like Rocky. And then I became a physical fitness trainer when I was 16. My dad, like I said, crazy household. My dad used to be in the tool business before he made his millions of dollars selling electronics, and that failed. And it was a crazy lifestyle. And we'll get into Boogie Nights because that Burt Reynolds character is kind of loosely based on him a little bit with that craziness going on. And then he was homeless, living in a van outside the house that he bought, in Encino. So I said, I'm gonna make my dad proud. I'm gonna do the tool business like he did. His old business partner before he made money was Alan Smith, who started a company you might have heard called Harbor Freight. So I started this tool business and I failed 2 days later. And it was 2 days after I graduated high school. I said, well, I got to do something. And I knew I wanted to be an actor, an entrepreneur. And so I went to City College and I took acting, theater, and I took psychology and I took business. And I started doing stand-up comedy. And then I became a nightclub promoter. And that's where I really got a lot of my success. And I became the number one nightclub promoter. I met every star in Hollywood. I was flying around. My girlfriend at the time, her dad was the most powerful man in Hollywood. Didn't want to ask them for anything, so I didn't really help me that segue into my acting career because I was in love with this girl. So, but I met somebody along the way, this other guy that wanted to be a filmmaker. I drove him home. His girlfriend and my girlfriend were sisters. So I drive him home, and his name was Paul Thomas Anderson. At the time, it was just Paul Anderson. And I cracked him up, and I made him laugh for the whole way home. And then 2 days later, he calls me up and he says, do you want to be in a short film I'm doing? It's about the rise and fall of a porno star named Dirk Diggler. And I was like, I'm in. I never acted or anything. I knew I wanted to be an actor. Months later, I'm sitting, in a hotel, and we're doing this short film to Boogie Nights, the Dirk Diggler story. And it ended up winning a lot of awards. And then he ended up calling me back into Boogie Nights, and I appear in the movie as well. I'm the stereo shop customer that Don Cheadle sells a stereo to. And I said, if he can do it, I can do it. So I said, I'm going to do the same thing that Tarantino did and Paul did and M. Night Shyamalan and Robert Rodriguez. That was the big thing. Robert Rodriguez did a film, the filmmaker. He did a film for $6,000 and he gave blood. And I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give blood. So we're going to make a film really cheap. It's going to be huge. And so I did a live action short film. It cost a lot more money than Rodriguez's, and it won a lot of awards and got me close to a movie deal. And I made it with everybody in Hollywood, but I just didn't get that big deal. And now I gave up my nightclub business. I worked in film production. I did this film. I'm broke and I want to make another movie, and Hollywood's not going to give me money to do it. I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to be an entrepreneur again. I'm going to make my own movie. Heidi's nodding. Yeah, she understands. So then I go,
this is my life, except I'm not friends with Paul Thomas Anderson or you. Yes, but now I'm friends with you. So I'm getting
many more.
Halfway there.
So I say, you know what? I'm so tired of the, because there were so many great things. When I didn't ask for favors, and people wanted to give them to me, I wasn't taking them. And then when I was asking everybody in Hollywood for favors, they weren't giving it to me. So I said, I'm going to make my own movie. There was a gambling movie they wanted to make because I did underground gambling casinos in Los Angeles, when I was a nightclub promoter. And I kind of did a screenplay of that, and I got close to the deal, but it was so hard by the 99, 2000, it was hard to really get a movie deal now. It wasn't like the early 90s where they were hounding them out like hotcakes. And that's not an excuse, just a little bit of a climate change. And I didn't want to wait. I said, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to make my own movie. So the movie nobody wanted to make was this movie called Love Hollywood Style that I wrote with it's about 4 intertwining stories about crazy, scenarios like Kentucky Fried Movie meets American Beauty. It was like it was clever, but amazing. It was wild. Yeah, a little bit of a juxtaposition.
Perfect.
2 ends of the spectrum. So I ended up getting, I'm like, okay, this is a film that my friends, I'm going to put my friends in it, but I'm going to get big actors that like my short film and everything. And then, knew that I, knew. But then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and I start spending more money and more. I forgot to tell you, I started a business that enabled me to get the money. I started this business, and then now I wanted to do something on the internet. Everybody out there, either you could choose your passion or opportunity, or somewhere in between. But Mike Rowe talks about choosing opportunity over passion. So I said, I'm just going to do something. I'm going to sell the product that everybody needs, it's Tarps, on the internet, and I'm going to just sell that. And it started blowing up. I'm a natural entrepreneur, so that was like easy for me. I was like Happy Gilmore, like he did well in golf and he wanted everybody to like appreciate his hockey career. Yes. That was like me. I was like, no, this is just the movie business. I'm just doing this to make my movie. I was embarrassed, so it started making money, and then I had money for my film. And then I said, well, no one's ever gonna, I don't even care at this point. I just want to make this. I want to sit up at bat with like a big actors and like really, act and do a big thing. So I got Faye Dunaway, Mommy Dearest, two-time Academy
Mhm.
Award winner. I got Andy Dick, Coolio, crazy cast, a lot of other great character actors that you've seen.
Because
And
Faye
we made a
Dunaway and
great
Coolio worked together before, didn't they?
Coolio and who?
And Faye Dunaway, aren't they close friends? Or just Facebook? Am I
They're
reading
like,
that wrong?
yeah, they're
I-
like
Yeah.
Martha and Snoop before Martha and
I
Snoop.
had the only connection I knew was my film, but if they are friends, that is funny.
Because
this is
of your film.
2003.
Yeah, exactly. Because of
I
the
started
film.
making the film in 2003 and I finished it in 2006. We're making a documentary about this film because it was an utter crazy Tour de France of like, just out of control filmmaking. So long story short, I make the movie. And by the end of it, we were totally exhausted. And I said, you know what? I have to choose between whether I'm going to blow this business up or continue my trek in Hollywood. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I got two young daughters now. As I made this film, I got married. I met my wife. I was making this movie, fell in love. And I said, you have two paths to choose. So that's when I really decided, I said, I'm going to choose to make this business. I'm going to raise my kids. And that's probably why I haven't gotten a podcast. I haven't done anything like this, the podcast I do now, because I was going to dedicate my life to my kids and not go so crazy because I was doing so much. I was doing stand-up comedy. I was doing filmmaking. I started this business. There was other projects I was doing. So I grew this business into $100 million plus business. That means that it's earned today. Last year it earned up to $100 million. And now my goal is to do the podcast. That my daughter's she turned 15 yesterday, and she's like, you know what, I'm good. I got enough time. You're good. And then I got a 12-year-old that's like, starting. It happens, right? So now I'm like, okay, now I'm going to get back to doing things. And this podcast was a natural progression. I wanted to do a podcast called Long Shot Leaders, where I can interview people that have failed and succeeded and overcome large obstacles to find success. And here we are today.
So where are you finding these long shot leaders, apart from your family? It sounds like.
Well, it's interesting. I knock on wood. It is lucky that I was a nightclub promoter for 7 years and I was a big one in LA, because also all I wanted when I had no friends when I was a kid, that point that I told you I was an awkward kid and I was unhealthy and all that, I always wanted friends. So I started to, I collect friends, and some of them are very powerful or popular or successful. Um, some of them have had tragedies, So when you have a lot of friends, or acquaintances, you're able to call them up and say, "Hey, I'm doing something." There's a lot of people that fit the criteria of, um, success. Everybody comes over obstacles. So I try to find all those people first, and then I meet other people through. Once you have some of those people, you meet more people, and then sometimes people are just starting to call me now.
Are you enjoying it? Enjoying these conversations?
I enjoyed talking to you guys today. I'm a
No,
very happy person.
I'm sorry.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Way low.
This is fun for me. Are you kidding me? Yeah. I
Hey,
enjoyed it
Michael,
a
tip
lot.
1, raise the bar.
Yeah.
No, I really do. I love people. I love studying. I started, studying personal development heavily when I was 22, and haven't stopped ever since. And I love, because I came from I love my family, very dysfunctional family, you know. Um, but it's okay, it's all good. I love their dysfunctionalities. You learn to grow to love that. And so I wanted to understand, plus my background, with learning disability and all that stuff that they said I had. And I don't, even believe I had that. I just believe I had, my own journey, and I took care of it. So I enjoy talking to people like you. I enjoy people like, I want to know, like, what is Heidi going to do for dinner tonight? Or what's her favorite foods? Or like, that's why this fits well for me. What are you going to do tonight, Heidi? I can see your kids back
Takeout.
there walking up and down the stairs.
Yeah, it'll be takeout for sure.
Yeah.
I do not cook. There's not a domestic bone in my body. Even though you've seen some small children around here.
She's
it's my
renting
niece and
those. Those
nephew.
are
Yeah,
all
I'm
actors.
renting them. I borrow them. I like to pretend they're ghosts in the background haunting.
Why would you do that? Why would you rent those?
I know. I don't know.
It's
something
cheaper
wrong
than
with it.
buying. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I
right.
could if you wanted to know I could live entirely on very hot chicken Penang from any great Thai restaurant, and cheesecake. Those two together.
I love those two. Yeah.
Different
And it's
bowls, I'm
Friday.
hoping.
Friday and Saturday are my big eat days.
Yeah, me too.
Eat
So-
healthy all during the week. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to do, and weirdly, it works. Strange. Like cutting the sugar down to 2 days a week, it strangely works. Who knew?
It's
Sorry,
interesting as you're
I got the ADHD,
it's okay.
Luke. So
No,
I'll
hey,
deviate.
it's
So
I do
go
too.
ahead.
cool. No, please.
do
This
too.
is why we have two people on the show. One of us can pull on the reins and
One
jerk
is
the other one back into
responsible.
line.
That would be yes. Guess which one's the show pony?
Yeah. Heidi, jump.
Yes,
Go.
the old pirouette.
What's interesting, you're telling your story and talking about all of the sort of obstacles that have been in your path. And I kept thinking of that line from the band song that you take what you need and you leave the rest. And it seems very similar. Like you kind of have been able to, and I think that maybe that's part of your success is being able to go through these incredibly trying times and difficult situations and be able to come out the other end of them and say, all right, well, what did I learn? What can I take out of this that's good? And what can I go past and not think of ever again? Let's just leave that in the past.
That's a personal growth thing. What can I learn from this?
Mhm.
What's interesting about this? You ask yourself empowering questions, you're going to get better answers, rather than saying, what's wrong with me? So, I love movie quotes. So like great line from the movie The Natural, Glenn Close says, I believe we have two lives. I always quote this line as like one that we learn with and one that we live with. Right. So, that's kind of like, you're going to make tons of mistakes, and I've made tons of them. I've been through a lot of, you can either empower certain things, like my dad brought a prostitute to my bar mitzvah. That's not right, Heidi. That doesn't make sense. But,
Well,
but now I said it in stand-up comedy. It's part of my routine. So
Right.
right.
so these things become disadvantages, become advantages, and you learn how to deal with these things, and you have fun with it.
Was
Yeah.
your present in cash or?
Right. Yeah. What
No,
kind of
I
gift
think it
is
was like an offering,
Oh,
but
okay.
like
Okay.
he
Right.
maybe he sensed again he's not ready. So it was
Mm.
his backup plan. Maybe he's like no total loss at the end
Right.
of the
Yeah.
night.
Somebody wins.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, people I always lose people at that point. They're like, okay, well now he's talking about his brother.
No, I
Please.
tell me more.
Where's he gonna go from here?
Yes, please tell us more.
Well, and
This
it's
seems
interesting.
very fitting to liven up the party at any
Yeah.
event.
And then too, I think your film experience, having had similar experience as well, like that puts you through the ringer very quickly and decides whether or not you want to be doing this. And especially on a short film, especially on a low budget short film, there's a lot of separating wheat and chaff in that process. And the fact that you went through that and were able to come out the other side with a finished movie, already that puts you in that 10% echelon of, hey, this is in color and the lips match up. We're good. We have a film.
Yeah. No, I have no problem like, putting it out there, but it'll feel like, so I did, like you, I was a documentary filmmaker. I did several documentaries. I segued from, a nightclub promoter, and I did a documentary on the history of the LA club scene. And then I had 4,000 people at the Park Plaza Hotel, which is like the big coveted location out there for nightclubs. And then I said, okay, great. This will be my segue. I'll be able to do a documentary. And I wasn't into house music, but this is a big phenomenon in the early 90s. And I said, well, I'll do a documentary on all this big house music craze. So I went around the country for 4 months directing a documentary, showing my documentary from LA. And we planned a 12 concert tour around the country in different cities as we filmed for 4 months, filmed the creators of house music, DJs, magazine writers, everybody. And then I thought that was going to just do great because all these rave promoters put these people on invitations and they blow up and have thousands of people there. And it turns out that, going to the American film market and selling a film and then distributing it and getting it, is hard. This is before the internet.
Yeah.
So that was a good documentary, but it didn't, so I had 2 documentaries that didn't make money. I said, okay, I gotta make a live action short film like Paul did. Because we were kind of did that when I did my documentary, he did his short film, not Dirk Diggler's story, did a short film called Cigarettes and Coffee, which eventually got made into Hard 8, which is one of his movies. Before we made Boogie Nights, I said, I got to do that. So I made a short film, half-hour long, live action, dramatic short film. And that's what did really well. But it just, it got bought by HBO. It made, a lot of money for a short film, didn't make all its money back. And I was like going, okay, I've made 2 documentaries. I've done some other projects. I've made a short film now. That's all of them have lost money. I guess I'll keep going because
Yeah, that's the green light.
This
why?
makes
Yeah,
perfect
why
sense.
not? Why not just start a business to like do another film and just keep it because it's a disease. Like it's when you have that passion, you just can't give it up. That's the beautiful thing about stand-up comedy. You write your routine. You're spending maybe the time just to be to deliver the material, but at least it's a low budget way to get your message out.
Mhm.
So that was yeah, good to do that. But so but all those things because when I started when I was a nightclub promoter, there's not a lot of academics to do, by the way.
Mhm.
You start learning how to design invitations, and then you just talk to people. You run for education, run for president without education, basically, is what you do. So what I learned though, when I did each one of these films I did, I learned how to write. I learned syntax. I learned vocabulary. I became a wordsmith. I learned about life. I learned how to study character development. I had my personal growth. I went a long way. So you don't. What was your line? You don't get what you want, but you get what you need, or something. Or
Right.
what
You
was the
take what
line
you
that you
need.
said?
Take what you need and leave the rest. Yeah.
So I got to take a lot of things that I got, and I left the rest of the crap, and that it's helped me with everything else. So, kind of the business I'm in now, that helps me with the podcast. The podcast is helping me. We're doing a documentary on that crazy Michigan film, Love Hollywood Style, that went crazy. So everything helps each other, but you know, you stick with your livelihood, or you don't have to, but I have stuck with my opportunities to help me speak with you fine good people here today.
Man. Hmm.
But that's truly something that I think most people, no matter what they're in, they miss one or the other, right? They either go, I've got to just do the straight and narrow path and make money and I can't pursue my passion, or they're like, I'm just going to do my passion and it'll all hit. It's all going to happen. When in reality, the way you're doing it clearly is the one that makes sense.
I'll give you the secret why I did it. I'm not hireable, or at least I wasn't back then. So no one would hire me. I wasn't. I was, like I said. I was just. I was never a good student. I was always an entrepreneur, and my dad was an entrepreneur, and his dad was, a failing entrepreneur. The only difference I said if I have success, I'm not going to lose it. That's probably and I haven't for since I've started this business. Now it's for 20 years. So, you know, um, that's the only difference. I'm like, you don't want to make the same generational, third generation of loss. But I wasn't, I don't know any other way to be other than be an entrepreneur. It'd be hard for me to try to work for somebody else because I don't know if I would do a good job. I know how to help people work for me, and we work together, but I don't know how to really work for anybody else. So you got to think of things to do on your own.
So let's talk about tarps for a second. What's kind
Sure.
of the big material wise? What are people looking at?
Well, there's so many different. I started selling tarps because it was an easy item and everybody needed them, right? It was easy to understand, and I wanted to sell a widget on the internet. So I was never really the outdoorsy kind of guy, but I was more of like I always like survival. Like I always like I'm an 80s kid, so we're all worried about like the end of the world, So
Mhm.
like, Swiss the Army knives and like tarps and things for anything of survival, it was like always like fascinating me. So I was like, I don't know why is this fascinating me. So plus I wanted to just have an item that was useful. So, and when I did nightclubs, this is another reason. When I did nightclubs, I used to get people in for half price, and I did this big event called Turkey Soup every Thanksgiving, and we'd get people in for half price with a canned food for the homeless. So, if I sold tarps, I could like donate tarps to the homeless. I could help people with hurricanes. I could do all kinds of fun, adventurous, philanthropic things. It was kind of like a selfish reason why I originally did it for the nightclubs to get more people in the door. But then it gets good to you after a while when you kind of do philanthropic stuff. So that was like why I did tarps. Now, what do people use tarps for? There's so many applications. They do it to cover every single application, from that to a slip and slide to, covering roofs after a hurricane to, holding water for survival, gathering up water. That's used in Puerto Rico and then people, so there's just so many applications. But right now we're actually making a tarp. You would think there'd be nothing interesting about a cooler, right? like Yeti made the cooler.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're making a tarp that will define the industry the same way that Yeti defined the cooler industry. I can't tell you what it is because we're in the development stages,
Wow.
but it's we're gonna launch it next year, and it's gonna hopefully be like the Yeti of tarps.
All right. Well, next time, Heidi, bookmark his page. So next time we're trying to get rid of a dead hooker, we can
Oh,
just pull
for
that up.
sure. That
You
was
took a
my
seat. He
first
just took
thought.
it a whole other level.
Yeah.
Well, the funny
Right?
thing is, my question was, what is the best tarp to use for dead bodies, whatever they might
Depends
be?
on what you're doing.
And do you ever
Like,
wonder when someone places an order what exactly they're planning to use said tarp for?
well, we keep a spreadsheet of all uses.
Mm.
So when we need the data to do product development, then you have that data to pull upon and see what's the most in demand and the most pain points for that product.
See, so this is good. So we'll know, and we can have that as an offline conversation.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I like
Anybody that's creating a product out there, find out what's the most pain points for that. That's a 101, right? You find out what's the most pain points and try to give everybody what they're not receiving in the industry and work on that back.
Well, and I think dead body transportation would have a lot of pain points.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Luke,
definitely.
Luke, you could be onto something.
I
Right?
know. So with your tarps, kind of the holes, the grommets on the side, what's the best like you get, is it steel or bronze that those always are that rust out? Does
I
every
love it
tarp,
that he wants to talk about tarps. No one ever wants to talk to me about tarps. This is great.
this
Luke
is
will
why we
always
have this
talk
show.
about tarps.
Okay,
This show's
here
been a
we go.
2.5-year discussion of tarps. I hate to break it to you.
I really we like tarps. No problem. Brass grommets because they, brass or aluminum because they're not going to
Right.
rust. Okay, brass is better than aluminum because aluminum is going to bend. You want to make sure that you have a double seal around the perimeter so that the grommets in tightly. You want to make sure if it's polytarp that it's rope reinforced, so that this is like everything like you just like never wanted to know, but you like know. But if there's people out there that really want to go out and hunt or they want to, go fishing or for an outdoors kind of person, you want to get a polyethylene camouflage tarp because it's cool, because it's camo and it's polyethylene, which if anybody's, I just started watching Breaking Bad, which is like, why did it
Welcome.
take me so
Yeah,
long?
thank you for joining.
Like you're a little
Yeah,
busy.
I'm a
Society,
movie guy
yeah.
though. So I just
Okay.
started watching the Netflix and all that stuff, because it takes away from my movie time. I'm one of those movie nerds that likes to play the game, but I got over that because there's too much good content on Prime and Netflix now.
Sure.
So in episode 1 and 2, they said, look, you got to get a polyethylene bucket for
Mhm.
when you pour the hydrochloric acid. I
Yep.
just learned this the other night. I was
Live
like,
and
that's
learn,
right.
Michael. Live and learn.
Live and learn. So the polyethylene tarps are hydrochloric acid resistant.
Look at that
Now,
match made in heaven.
I have found with my kids, and they have a tree house and trying to find a good cover for said tree house.
Yeah.
Everything Home Depot and Lowe's has is a dark color. So as
Yeah.
far as something so they don't, I'm not cooking children under there.
Yeah.
What do you use for that? Because I cannot find something that is a treehouse appropriate. It's either half of the house or it is a throw rug. Like there's nothing that you can actually use that's a good size. But why don't they come in lighter colors that will kind of help, not like black and just absorb all the sun and
When
you've got
you have
two
a
children with
specialized
heat stroke.
Yeah, that's a great question. When you have a specialized niche product, Home Depot's only going to care like 1 or 2 colors, right? Yeah, they have a billion stores across the planet, so they're going to have to say, look, we're just going to have to take the top 2. We specialize in a product, right? So we're going to carry it in every size and every type of grade, consumer wise. We don't sell like tarps that cover houses or anything. We have large one. I have a 170 foot by 170 foot professional baseball field tarps down to a 5x7 blue tarp. So what you would want for that tree house is either a heavy duty polyethylene, which is UV resistant, which will block out the sun. You want something in yellow, green, red, or orange, which is nice for the kids.
Right. And that way too, if they kill somebody, double duty. That's perfect.
Right. You're still thinking about that hooker and
I'm just trying to cover all my bases. You can find Long Shot Leaders with Michael Stein wherever you get your podcasts and probably even where you found this one. And you can find more information on Michael's tarp company at abadak.com.
You can follow us on all the various socials. Our website is whythepodcast.com and has all sorts of additional stories and videos. It's also where you can sign up for our newsletter. We're also on YouTube if you're into that kind of thing. And don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes, because if you don't, we'll call your mother and tell her that she's completely right. You would look so much prettier if you smiled more.
Why the Podcast is part of Mudhouse Media. Today's show was produced by myself and Heidi Hegquist. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing executive producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our graphic designer is Samantha Mustonen. The theme song was performed by the Electrosynth-O-Magnetic Polyphonic Orchestra. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Flash, we're coming home.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?